T-Wolves drop a tough one tonight versus the Thunder. They watch their lead in the West drop to one game. I got Wolves expert Jack Borman. He's going to help us break it all down. It's all coming up next on the Locked On Wolves postcast.
You are Locked On Wolves postcast, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up? What's up? Back in the lab, back at it. Another T-Wolves postcast episode right here on the Locked On Sports Minnesota Network. You got myself, Luke Inman, at Luke_Spinman. That's the man, Jack Borman. He's on Twitter, at JRBorman13. And before we get into all the action, quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more with America's #1 sportsbook and official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Right now, new customers, you're getting $150 in bonus bets with any $5 bet. $150 when you bet just $5. Check it all out. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOnNBA. All right, man. Game of the week right here. Top two teams in the West going toe-to-toe. Wolves with the 2-game lead heading in. And, I mean, this one kind of lived up to the expectations for sure. Wolves got off to that slow start, but it came down to the wire at the end. They fall short, 102-97, dropped to 29-12. Watch that lead start to shrink in the West now, just one game. Plenty of individual performances I'd love to pick your brain about, but first, let's just start where we always do. There's plenty of directions we can kick things off with, by the way. I mean, Wolves bench kept them in this one. The turnovers was a major shot in the foot all night. And sometimes you just step back, you throw your hands up, and you just give credit where credit's due. OKC played pretty good tonight as well. But you tell me, give us your biggest takeaways and what a loss like that means to this Wolves team now with a one-game lead now in the West.
Yeah, I really don't think it's a game where you shake OKC's hand and tell them, good job.
Felt like you should have won
winning
that
game.
right?
Yeah, and this game was not a game that Oklahoma City, I think, really won. I think it was just a game that the Timberwolves completely gave away. We saw this a ton last season and 2 seasons ago, frankly. The Timberwolves last season were a terrible team in the fourth quarter, and they've been largely a very good team in the fourth quarter and really the whole second half, all season. But again, turnovers was a huge issue in the first half. They gave up 20 points off turnovers, I believe, in the first half, which was pretty ridiculous. And then in the third quarter, only 1 turnover, did not allow any points off of it. And then in the fourth quarter, you give up 7 turnovers. You had which resulted in 8 Oklahoma City points. You had more than twice as many turnovers, 7, as you did made field goals, 3. The Timberwolves just completely, crapped the bed in this one. I think, frankly, I mean, Mike Conley, it was easily his worst game as a Timberwolf. Obviously, when you look and you see he's 1 of 9 from 3, and all of those 3-pointers, with the exception of maybe the last one, were pretty wide open, and he missed a few pretty crucial shots. But even for Mike, you want to look at how many turnovers Mike Conley had in this game. He had 3 turnovers. And for someone like him, like that's just too many, especially when you consider the fact that you can pretty much chalk Ant up for 4 or 5 at this point. You can chalk Carl up for 2 or 3. You can chalk Rudy up for 2 or 3. And Jaden, if his offense is scaled up, he's gonna commit 2 or 3. The Timberwolves starting 5 tonight, more turnovers than assists. I believe they had 15 turnovers and 13 assists. So absolutely not what you want to see. And frankly, I just thought Chris Finch got really outcoached down the stretch of that game. The way that, he kind of saved all of his timeouts until the end, which I get. But when the game is totally slipping away, I understand when you're sitting there watching your guys when they're trying to put away, a super injury depleted team, like we saw in the last game, and the Wolves were able to, just kind of step on the Grizzlies' throats a little bit and just pull away. But in this one, he just kind of sat on the sidelines and watched. He didn't get Nickeil Alexander-Walker back in the game down the stretch of that game, which I thought he should have. He didn't play Naz Reid very much in the fourth quarter, which I absolutely thought he should have. Naz Reid was a plus 19 in this game. Karl Anthony Towns was a minus 19 in this game. So I think when you marry, just really bad turnovers from pretty much everybody that was in the game, in the fourth quarter with, just poor, rotation management decisions, which Chris Finch normally nails. Like when guys off the bench, whether it be Nas or Troy Brown or Kyle Anderson, like he'll generally leave one of those guys in if they're playing really well to finish the game. And that just didn't happen. And Anthony Edwards too has to wear this one. Only 10 field goal attempts. Like I do not care how good of defense they are playing on you. You have to find a way to get up more than 10 10 field goal attempts. Credit to him for trying to make that last play and made something out of it. But again, missing both your free throws, just absolutely brutal. Totally just a game that you gave away. I mean, you can go in any direction you want. You look at anything pretty much on, in that box score would tell you that the Timberwolves probably would have won this game, but the turnovers were, pretty much the entire story. The officiating was also god awful all night. I thought the Thunder probably got an extra 12 to 15 points of an advantage from what we saw from the officiating tonight. But again, it's tough for that to really determine the final score when you turn the ball over 28 or 21 times for Oklahoma City, scoring 28 points. So just a horrible loss, worst loss of the season, in my opinion. And certainly one that I think Timberwolves fans should keep at the forefront of their mind as the Timberwolves, kind of approach the playoffs here. Because if the Timberwolves aren't going to be able to figure out their crunch time offense, specifically with Anthony Edwards, just, totally, taking control of the wheel and not doing much with it, there's no way that they are going to win a first round playoff series. No way. Not with some of the offensive talent that even is, towards the bottom of the playoff ladder in the Western Conference.
We're over the halfway mark now in the season. I think we've came on this postcast and talked about the refs maybe once, maybe twice at most, but definitely tonight you could definitely spend 5, 10, 15 minutes even on how tough some of those calls were tonight. So plenty of people already venting in the comment section about how bad the refs were. Tough one to swallow for sure. I want to say it was like 30-14 in the first quarter. And from that point on, I mean, Wolves, they did flip a switch there, got things cooking. And like it always does, it started with Naz Reid coming off the bench, going Mr. Automatic, almost robotic at this point with that first three-pointer. Wolves bench, I mean, you touched on it, was really the thing that got him back into this one. They outscored OKC's bench by a mile. Naz Reid, 18 points, 4 blocks. Should have been 5 blocks, by the way. Jordan McLaughlin coming in and adding a serious spark when they were down big and really needed it. I guess talk to me about the bench and how impressed you were, because this feels like the one and only major positive tonight. And also, I guess my follow-up too, how much has J-Mac been able to change the pace of this team when he's been out there? Because as of late, he's been a great little spark plug they just didn't have when he was hurt.
Yeah, 100%. I think the biggest thing with Jordan McLaughlin is like there is a point where there is kind of a law of diminishing returns a little bit, where, we saw that 2 years ago where, he really kind of started to outplay D'Angelo Russell for stretches, and Finch kind of gave him the keys and tried to, play him more maybe than he had all year. And that's when things kind of started to fall apart, especially down the stretch of the season. But this season, what he's been able to do in the role that he has been, damn close to an A+ for a guy playing his role. And I think Chris Finch has done an excellent job of kind of picking his spots of when to go to Jordan McLaughlin. I don't think he went to Jordan McLaughlin like in the rotation soon enough after he returned. But I do really think that he's impacted the game in a great way. I think the way that he gets the ball moving from side to side, which I think is the most important thing in the Timberwolves offense. I mean, the Timberwolves are 17-0 when they have at least 27 assists. I want to say they're now 11-12 or something like that when they or 11-11 or something like that when they don't. They had 22 tonight, so that stays true again. But with Jordan McLaughlin, the way he's able to kind of get 2 feet in the paint and kick the ball out and force the defense to collapse and get the ball swinging from side to side, and he's a great cutter too. He moves without the basketball. Does a great job of kind of knowing how to give guys an outlet, whether it's on the drive or if they get trapped or guys in the post or things like that. And he does all the things, you want to see from a point guard besides scoring, really. He's not really a score first guy. But tonight, I mean, he had 8 points, knocked down a pair of threes, had 3 assists, 0 turnovers, and also had 2 steals. Like, I think Jordan McLaughlin is a much more competitive defender than people give him credit for, especially on the ball, but off the ball too. Like, he does a great job of kind of keeping one eye on his man and one eye on where the ball is at all times, and really has a keen sense of when to make a play. And so that was absolutely huge. I mean, to have 8 points, 3 assists, and a steal in 8 minutes and 35 seconds of play in the first half was awesome. And that Jordan McLaughlin, Naz Reid battery had 15 points in the second quarter alone, and were huge. And then just with Naz specifically, I mean, was a really big part of that energy shifting in the second quarter. Made back-to-back threes, found Nickeil Alexander-Walker for another 3, which was huge, on back-to-back possessions to really kind of, fully kind of grab hold of the game. And I just think the way that he's able to take control of teams that don't really have a backup 5, I think is a real weapon. I think it is honestly maybe the most consistent thing on this Timberwolves team, besides Mike Conley not turning the ball over. I think that he almost every single game, a team does not have a great backup 5. He has a great game. And then beyond those two, I think you got to give Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Kyle Anderson a lot of credit too. I thought that the way that they competed on both ends of the ball was great. I think Nickeil Alexander-Walker defensively is a guy that just totally wears on you. It's just really hard to play offense against him for prolonged stretches. And he does a great job of kind of forcing guys off schedule when they're trying to make a move. He kind of takes them out of it a little bit to throw off their timing. Even if he's not getting a steal or a block or a rebound or things like that, it's those little types of plays that, really don't show up in the box score. But for this bench unit tonight was just excellent. And for them to outscore Oklahoma City 34-15, again, was a huge reason why the Timberwolves, got back in front by what was it, 12 or whatever it was. And really exposed, I think, the biggest flaw of the Thunder, which is that their bench is pretty bad, and they don't have a whole lot of scoring options off the bench, and we'll see if they decide to address that before the trade deadline.
Everyone in the chat venting about the two things: the refs and turnovers, and you can't blame them. 44 turnovers coming into tonight in the 2 games versus OKC. Add on another 21, like you mentioned, makes it 65 in 3 games. Add 28 points off those turnovers tonight alone. Dude, they just can't get out of their own way sometimes. And I sometimes just sit back and I got to wonder, halfway through the season now, if this just isn't who this team is and it's just going to follow them around all season long, or if there's still some reason for some hope and optimism when it comes to maybe cleaning some of those things up. And by the way, you tell me OKC is 28 points off turnovers tonight. I tell you their chances of winning go down from 50-50 game coin flip to like 90-10 at best. So I guess talk to us about the turnovers a little bit more in depth, broader picture, and what maybe, again, they need to do heading into the playoffs, or how detrimental that could be, where we go from here, I guess. But how they were even able to stay in this one until the final possession or two.
Yeah, I think that, people think that getting another backup point guard behind Mike Conley is kind of an antidote to the turnover problems, but I really don't agree with that at all, because Jordan McLaughlin is perennially been one of the best assist to turnover ratio guys in the entire league.
Right.
And, he does a great job, I think, of getting the ball moving, which reduces the amount of turnovers that the team is having and increases the amount of assists that they have when he's on the floor. And for me, it honestly is Karl Anthony Towns, Anthony Edwards, Rudy Gobert, Jaden McDaniels, Naz Reid too, looking themselves in the mirror and looking within themselves and asking themselves, how can I turn the ball over less? All of those guys have been culprits all season long when it comes to the turnovers. And a lot of it comes from, all those guys trying to do too much in isolation off the dribble. And when you face a team like Oklahoma City that has a really tight shell defense and does a really good job of kind of packing the paint and rotating, And they also do an excellent job of contesting shots, especially on the perimeter. You just are going to have to move the ball more to make the defense work. And you can't drive into crowds. And all of those guys have a tendency to drive into crowds. And it's been a problem for the Timberwolves the whole entire season. It's been a problem for Karl-Anthony Towns his entire career. It's been a problem for Anthony Edwards his entire career. We know that Rudy Gobert can't really do anything with the basketball when he puts it on the deck. That's been a thing his entire career. So I don't really think that there's a solution to the problem other than somehow getting through to them that if you're Rudy Gobert, never, ever, ever put the ball on the ground if there's like a defender within 5 feet of you. And if you're Karl-Anthony Towns or Jaden McDaniels or Naz Reid, stop driving into crowds, because none of those guys are good enough playmakers off the dribble to consistently drive into a crowd, collapse the entire defense and make a pass that results either in a assist or a pass that becomes an assist, like a hockey assist. And so that's the biggest thing for me. I don't think it's personnel related. I just think it's guys having to figure out how to stop doing the one thing that is causing this team to turn the ball over and over and over again.
No, that makes sense. That was a good breakdown for sure. And we'll see again how things trend closer to not only just the All-Star break, but the closer we get to March and April. Yeah, go ahead.
And I was just going to add one other thing. I think Chris Finch has to call more plays as well. He talks about all the time how he wants to be more free flowing and stuff like that, but they didn't run anything in that fourth quarter, really, outside of after timeout plays. And when the ball is being turned over like that, and it's isolation and it's guys driving the lane, and like Ant had a couple of just horrible turnovers in the fourth quarter where he tried to kick it out to Rudy Gobert. He tried to kick another one out to the left corner when he had a floater right there, a wide open floater, and tried to pass it, and instead it's just like things like that too, where I think when you realize that, you just, as a coach, you've got to just get more involved in the game. And I love and respect that Chris Finch wants his guys to figure out, empowers his guys to figure out. But at some point, especially for as good of a tactically good of an offensive coach as Chris Finch is, when he does call plays, just got to get more involved sometimes.
Plenty more deep dive from this one, including Jaden McDaniels maybe turning a little corner offensively, and it's coming up next. Quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to you by BetterHelp. What are some things you want to keep the same about yourself or about your life in 2024? Where are you already crushing it? Try ditching all the New Year's resolutions and start expanding on what you already do right. Maybe that's organizing the closet or the garage. I know that's something that I'm terrible about. Well, therapy can help you find your best strengths and maximize your own specific skill sets so you can finally ditch the extreme resolutions. Instead, therapy can help you make changes that really stick over the long term, once and for all. If you've been thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited for your time frame. And it's so easy. All you got to do, fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched up with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time at no additional charge. It's time to start celebrating the progress you've already made. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. All right, let's pick back up here. Jaden McDaniels, as of late, it would seem he's maybe found a new gear, or at least some consistency, a little rhythm with the ball in his hands offensively. Again, trying to find some positives here tonight. 10 or more points in 4 straight games now. And you can just see it. When you sit down and watch the Wolves from start to finish on a night-to-night basis, the Wolves are looking for him more offensively and maybe have found some new confidence, I guess is the best way to put it, when it comes to him scoring some more points. What's your 2 cents on Jaden McDaniels these last 4 or 5 games, putting up some double-digit box score points?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for Jaden is, Chris Finch has talked about in the past that, how well Jaden is scoring is kind of a canary in the coal mine of how well the offense is kind of operating. And I think that's given what we had seen from Jaden up until this, down the stretch really of last season, I thought that was a fine response, but like they've got to start weaponizing Jaden McDaniels' offense more. Like what he's able to do off the dribble is pretty impressive. And I think the more that they can get him, attacking downhill, kind of in repetition, like live game reps, so that they have that, that they can go to it in the playoffs, I think the better off they're going to be. I think, especially as they play some more just like terrible teams, over the course of the next 6 to 8 weeks, trying to do that would be really important. Like when you look at Jaden McDaniels, like most of his minutes come with the starting lineup, or with, mostly starter lineups. I would like to, like, obviously you don't want to disrupt the flow of the rotation, but I would really like to see more of Jaden with the bench guys and more with like Jordan McLaughlin specifically, as a way to be able to, kind of empower him as a more of a lead dog scorer, alongside Naz Reid, in those mostly bench lineups, because I do think that there is more scoring that they can get out of him. It's just that, I wonder if, Jaden scoring at times when he shoots, he feels like, oh, well, I'm taking shots away from Ant or Cat, and that's a bad thing. When in reality, like, I think it's a good thing that, the Timberwolves are kind of diversifying where their shots are coming from a little bit. And the good thing about Jaden is, like, more often than not, he does take good shots. Sometimes he kind of gets caught in the lane and has to throw up, tough shots. But again, like a missed shot in the paint, a mid-range shot is so much better than a live ball turnover. And that's something too that I think that the coaching staff is probably going to start preaching to these guys, especially around driving the gaps. But with Jaden specifically, like if they could set a pin down screen for him in the corner and have him kind of run out of the corner and curl off of it and catch the ball, kind of at the free throw line extended, and then just kind of catch it in rhythm and put it on the deck and get to the rim. Like that's a pretty simple play that I think would really benefit Jaden. And it's not like and the other thing too is Jaden's a coordinated enough guy where if he gets into the middle of the paint and the defense collapses on him, for the most part, he's going to be able to jump and make that pass. And I think that that's a little different than driving, into the gaps where the defense is, because, you kind of already have that head of steam. And when you catch the ball, you can already kind of see, where the defense is. And so the more that they can get Jaden going downhill, I think the better it is, because I think the more that you ask Jaden to spot up as a jump shooter and not do a whole lot else, I think that's when, his confidence can kind of start to waver a little bit. But I have really noticed that whether it be the extra pass or guys on the drive, Ant and Mike Conley specifically have done a lot more, driving to a spot with the intention of kicking the ball to the opposite corner to get Jaden McDaniels a touch, which is great. And if you look at, NBA.com has a passes received and passes made stat that I would be, interested to go look at that when I'm done here and see if that's ticked up over the course of the last month, because it certainly feels like he's touching the ball and catching more passes more often than he has been in previous months. And so I think the more they can kind of help him find a rhythm earlier on in the game, so that he can sustain that for the entire game, is going to be better. But of course, like he's got to stay on the floor as well, right? With the fouls. And granted, you don't have to tell me that some of the foul calls he had today called on him were utterly ridiculous, but it's just the way it is some nights with Jaden McDaniels. But again, I mean, he had 6 field goals, 3 of them came right at the rim and 3 of them came in the left corner. Those are kind of where he's been driving most of his offense. So I think the more they can help him get shots in those areas, the better they'll be. And, it's the 4th game in a row now that Jaden is been in double digits, and that ties his longest streak of the season. So the Timberwolves really need to keep that going, especially on nights like tonight. If Mike Conley, there aren't going to be many nights where Mike Conley isn't knocking down shots, but they become even more important on nights like tonight.
We always spend a quick 60 seconds or so on the opposing team every night. And tonight, I think it's well warranted. If you were to tell people on January 20th, the top 2 teams in the West would be these 2 teams, a lot of people probably would have said you're nuts. I mean, this is the 3rd matchup this year. We got another one versus OKC in 9 days, I think. So I guess, finally got a decent sample size to go off of, right? Tell me how you feel about this matchup, bigger picture, potential playoff matchup, and where you think maybe the Thunder's ceiling is, I guess, in the West right now, because clearly they ain't going anywhere. They'll probably be I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, top 4 seed at worst, pending everyone staying healthy when it's all said and done. I know last time we talked OKC, you mentioned you like Rudy matched up on some smaller, lighter centers like maybe a Chet Holmgren. But tell us more what you think about the Thunder, the Wolves, and just, what you think about the West and how it's shaping up right now at the midway point. 60 seconds. You're on the clock.
Yeah, I think with the Thunder, the biggest thing for them is like they got to find more scoring off the bench, and they've got to find a true backup 5 behind Chet Holmgren, because if he gets in foul trouble, like they're cooked. They just don't really have any options behind him. Jalen Williams is okay today, but so I think their ceiling is winning a first round playoff series, but nothing more than that. Just because I don't know that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is totally capable of expending as much energy as he does every single night in the playoffs against teams that are going to be, better defenses, loading up on him, doubling him, getting physical with him, all this stuff. And he's going to have to rely a lot on free throws, and guys that rely a lot on free throws tend not to do as well in the playoffs as they do in the regular season. So, unless they can address some of those problems that I just mentioned, I think it's going to be tough for them to get out of the first round of the playoffs. But credit to them, Mark Daigneault, for getting the guys ready to go, and they're second in the West. I don't think they'll stay there, but I think they're, the top 4 seeds in the West, I think, are pretty locked in.
Feels like Wolves, kind of a tier right there, right?
Wolves, yeah. OKC, Denver, and the Clippers in whatever order they end up being. But it'll be fun to see, what kind of takes shape behind them. I think the play-in tournament this year is going to be awesome. Really competitive and really some high level players that'll be in that. So, whoever comes out of that play-in tournament, whoever ends up being those top 2 seeds are going to have to be ready to go.
All right, quick look at the schedule and what's on deck moving forward. It's all coming up next. Quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more with America's #1 sportsbook and official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Right now, new customers, you're getting $150 in bonus bets when you place any $5 wager. $150 in bonus bets when you throw down just $5 on any bet. And you don't even have to win. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, no better time to get in on all the action. The app, so easy to use, and they got everything you need. Money lines, parlays, prop bets, over-unders, you name it, they got it. FanDuel's got everything you need to bet on the entire NBA season, and it's by far the easiest and simplest betting app to use. Go check it out for yourself. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon today. America's #1 sportsbook. FanDuel, official partner of the NBA. All right, schedule coming up the next few games now. Hornets, Wizards, Nets, Spurs, all on the road, but all 4 teams. If the season were to end today, none of those teams would make the playoffs. So you're hoping for some tune-up games here before you meet OKC again Monday, January 29th. What's your thoughts when you hear that stretch, though? What's got to happen? What do you want to see the most from this team?
Yeah, I think what I want to see the most from this team is for them to find offensive rhythm. I think coming into tonight, the Timberwolves were like the 7th ranked offense over the last 2 weeks. And I know that they haven't played the best defenses, but still proving to themselves that they can do that even against teams that aren't great defensively, I think are going to be really important. And I think what's interesting about some of the teams that they're going to play is that they do have good. So there are some talented offenses in this group that they're going to play. And if their defense slips too, or they turn the ball over a ton and, allow these teams to score off turnovers, it's just going to be, a stretch of games that are going to be a lot closer than they probably should be. So anything the Wolves can do to try to help cut down on some of their turnovers and try to find some more lineup combinations offensively that click a little bit, that get the ball moving, that can get guys shots at the rim or create more open 3-pointers, because that's been a point of, improvement, I think, that the Wolves need to focus on for the rest of the season. They're like 4th in 3-point percentage, but I want to say they're in the bottom 10 in total in terms of total 3-point attempts. And so obviously, like if you're hitting them at that clip, you want to be able to take more of them so you can, so you can have a night like tonight where, the 3-pointers really kept them in the game. I think it was, what was it tonight? It was 14-8 in terms of 3-pointers. Like that 18-point swing is like pretty big. And so the more that they can, I think, kind of lean on that, I think the better off they're going to be. So it's really just about offense for me. The defense, I think we all know, is pretty legit, especially considering their personnel. So just keep drilling away at the offense and hope you can kind of find a few things and, at worst, have a night like you did against Memphis where you don't play very well for 3 quarters, but, you're at least able to band together and kind of wear down the team and ultimately come out with a win.
Well done tonight, as always. Tough one, obviously, to watch. Glad we're able to come on here, though, and vent with everyone like this on a game-to-game basis. Wolves dropped to 29-12 on the year, and all of a sudden, they watched that lead shrink to just 1 game in the West. Back on the road for 4 straight now, starting with the Hornets. That's Monday night, tip-off, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. And again, another matchup with this OKC team just 9 days away as well. As always, huge shout out to everyone that joined us in the postcast. Always love everyone's feedback and comments and notes every night. Rest assured, we'll be back each and every game, same time, same place, right here to break it all down. Got to go check out all Jack's work on Twitter at JRBorman13. And make sure you check out Jack on the Minnesota basketball party with the full crew. Sam Ekstrom, Gophers legend Ron Johnson, Carol Evans, Reggie Wilson. That's each and every Wednesday afternoon. And on top of that, if you haven't already, Ben Beacon, spitting some hot fire over in the Locked On Wolves podcast each and every day as well. That'll do it for us tonight. He's Jack Borman. I'm Luke Inman on Twitter at Luke_Spinman. Until next time, signing off.